Aerospace activity. It seems to be under common agreement that the aerospace activities in which aerospace engineers work can be divided into seven groups: the industry, manufacturer of products; the airlines, transporters of goods and people; the military air forces, demanders of high level technologies; the space agencies, explorers of the space; the infrastructures on Earth, supporter of air operations; the research institutions, guarantors of technological progress; the international organizations, providers of jurisprudence. First, we will see aerospace manufacturer. The picture shown above is the hangar hangar location of the aircraft manufacturing plant in at Hamburg Finkenwerder Airport. An Airbus A321 on final assembly line 3 in the Airbus plant at Hamburg Finkenwerder Airport. An aerospace manufacturer is a company or individual involved in the various aspects of designing, building, testing, selling, and maintaining aircraft parts, missiles, rockets, or spacecraft. Aerospace is a high technology industry. The picture shown is the NASA's AIM, Aeronomy of Ice in the Mesosphere satellite, assembled in a clean room. Satellite manufacturing location in the NASA's laboratory. The aircraft industry is the industry supporting aviation by building aircraft and manufacturing aircraft parts for their maintenance. This includes aircraft and parts used for civil aviation and military aviation. Most production is done pursuant to type certificates and defense standards issued by a government body. This term has been largely subsumed by the more encompassing term aerospace industry. Market. In 2015, the aircraft production was worth $180.3 billion, 61% airliners, 14% business and general aviation, 12% military aircraft, 10% military rotary wing, and 3% civil rotary wing, while their MRO was worth $135.1 billion or $315.4 billion combined. The global aerospace industry was worth $838 billion in 2017. Aircraft and engine operation (OEMs) represented 28%, $235 billion. Civil and military MRO and upgrades 27%, $226 billion. Aircraft systems and component manufacturing 26%, $218 billion. Satellites and space 7%, $59 billion. Missiles and UAVs 5%, $42 billion. And other activity, including flight simulators, defense electronics, public research accounted for 7%, $59 billion. The countries with the largest industry were led by the United States with $408.4 billion, 49%, followed by France with $69 billion, 8.2%, then China with $61.2 billion, 7.3%, United Kingdom with $48.8 billion, 5.8%, Germany with $46.2 billion, 5.5%, Russia with $27.1 billion, 3.2%, Canada with $24 billion, 2.9%, and Japan with $21 billion, 2.5%. In 2018, the new commercial aircraft value is projected for $270.4 billion, while business aircraft will amount for $18 billion and civil helicopters for $4 billion. Largest aerospace companies, their revenue charts about their profits and every year. Largest aerospace companies $1 billion. Boeing, Airbus, Lockheed Martin, United Technologies, GE Aviation, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, Safran, BAE Systems. Revenue 2017 revenue is Boeing 93.4, Airbus 72.3, Lockheed Martin 51.0, United Technologies $30.9 billion, GE Aviation $27.4 billion, Northrop Grumman $25.8 billion, Raytheon $25.3 billion, Safran $17.9 billion, BAE System $13.4 billion, Rolls-Royce Holdings $12.7 billion, Leonardo $12.5 billion. And this is 2016 and 2015, 14, 17. Again the profit they made. This is the profit they made. The countries are Boeing United States, Airbus Europe, Lockheed Martin United States, United Technologies United States, GE Aviation Northrop Grumman United States, Raytheon United States, Safran France, and BAE System Rolls-Royce Holding United Kingdom, Leonardo Italy. They have approximately minimum $3 to $4 billion and maximum profit of $10 billion, $7 to $10 billion for all the companies. In geography, in September 2018, PwC ranked aerospace manufacturing attractiveness. The most attractive country was the United States with $240 billion in sales in 2017 due the sheer size of the industry, number one, and the educated workforce, number one, low geopolitical risk, number four, number one is Japan, strong transportation infrastructure, number five, number one is Hong Kong, a healthy economy, number 10, number one is China, but high cost, number 7, United States is number 7, number 1 is Denmark, average tax policy, number 36 is United States, and number 1 is Qatar. Following were Canada, Singapore, Switzerland, and United Kingdom. Within the US, the most attractive was Washington State due to the best industry, number 1, leading infrastructure, number 4, New Jersey is number 1, the economy, number 4, Texas is number 1, good labor, number 9, Massachusetts is number 1, average tax policy, number 17, Alaska is number 1 but is costly, number 33, Montana is number 1, Washington is tied to Boeing commercial airlines and earning $10.3 billion, is home to 1,400 aerospace related businesses and has the highest aerospace jobs concentration. Following are Texas, Georgia, Arizona, and Colorado. In the European Union, aerospace companies such as Airbus, BAE Systems, Thales, Dassault, Saab AB, Therma ABS, and Leonardo are participants in the global aerospace industry and research effort. In Russia, large aerospace companies like Oberon-Prom and the United Aircraft Corporation encompassing Mikoyan, Sukhoi, Ilyushin, Tupolev, Yakovlev, and Irkut, which includes Beryl, are among the major global players in the industry. In the US, the Department of Defense and NASA are the two biggest consumers of aerospace technologies and products. The Bureau of Labor Statistics of the United States reported that the aerospace industry employed 444,000 wage and salary jobs in 2004, many of which were in Washington and California. This marked a steep decline from the peak years during the Reagan administration, when total employment exceeded 1 million aerospace industry workers. During that period of recovery, a special program to restore US competitiveness across all US industries, Project Socrates, contributed to employment growth as the US aerospace industry captured 72% of world aerospace market. By 1999, US share of the world market fell to 52%. Cities. Important locations of the civil aerospace industry worldwide include Seattle, Wichita, Kansas, Dayton, Ohio, and St. Louis in the United States. Boeing, Montreal and Toronto in Canada. Bombardier and Pratt & Whitney, Canada. Toulouse in France and Hamburg in Germany. Airbus, EADS, the northwest of England, and Bristol in Britain. BAE Systems, Airbus and Augusta Westland. Komsomolsk on Amur and Irkutsk in Russia. Sukhoi Beryu, Kyiv and Kharkiv in Ukraine. Antonov, Nagoya in Japan. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Aerospace and Kawasaki Heavy Industries Aerospace, as well as São José dos Campos in Brazil, where Embraer is based. Consolidation. Several consolidations took place in the aerospace and defense industries over the last few decades. BAE Systems is the successor company to numerous British aircraft manufacturers, which merged throughout the second half of the 20th century. Many of these mergers followed the 1957 Defence White Paper. Airbus prominently illustrated the European airliner manufacturing consolidations in the late 1960s. Between 1988 and 2010, more than 5,452 mergers and acquisitions with a total known value of US $579 billion were announced worldwide. In 1993, the United States Secretary of Defense Les Aspin and his deputy William J. Perry held the Last Supper at the Pentagon with contractors executives who were told that there were twice as many military supplies as he wanted to see. 55 billion in military industry mergers took place from 1990 to 1997, leaving mainly Boeing, Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. Boeing bought McDonnell Douglas for US $13.3 billion in 1996. Raytheon acquired Hughes Aircraft Company for $9.5 billion in 1997. Marconi Electronic Systems, a subsidiary of the General Electric Company plc, was acquired by British Aerospace for US $12.3 billion in 1999 merger to form BAE Systems. In 2002, when Fairchild Dornier was bankrupt, Airbus, Boeing or Bombardier declined to take 728 jet, 928 jet large regional jet program, as mainline and regional aircraft manufacturers were split, and Airbus was digesting its ill-fated Fokker acquisition a decade earlier. On September 4, 2017, United Technologies acquired Rockwell Collins in cash and stock for $23 billion, $30 billion including Rockwell Collins net debt for $500 plus million of synergies expected by year 4. Major aerospace and defense deals 2011 to 2017. Target buyer Precision Castparts, Rockwell Collins, Goodrich, Orbital ATK, Sikorsky, BE Aerospace, Alliant Tech System A&D Group, Excelis Inc., Avio SPA Aviation Business, Titanium Metals Corporation, Fifth Exxon. Buyers are Precision Castparts, Berkshire Hathaway, closed January 2016, US billion dollars, 37.2. Rockwell Collins, buyer United Technologies, closed November 2018, US billion dollars, 30 US billion dollars. Goodrich, buyer United Technologies, closed July 2012, 18.3 billion dollars. Target Orbital ATK, buyer Northrop Grumman, June 2018, 9.2 billion dollars. Sikorsky, buyer Lockheed Martin, closed November 2015, 9.0 billion dollars. BE Aerospace, Rockwell target BE Aerospace, buyer Rockwell Collins, closed April 2017, $8.6 billion. Alliant Tech Systems A&D Group, buyer Orbital ATK, February 2015, closed $5.0 billion. Excelis Inc. target Harris Corporation, buyer, closed May 2015, $4.75 billion. Avios SPA Aviation Business, General Electric buyer, closed August 2013, $4.3 billion. Titanium Metal Corporation, buyer Precision Castparts, December 2012, closed $3.0 billion. Fixed Direction Alco, buyer July 2015. The October 16, 2017 announcement of the C-Series partnership between Airbus and Bombardier Aerospace could trigger a dicey chain of reaction toward a new order Airbus gets a new efficient model at the lower end of the narrow body market, which provides the bulk of airliners' profits and can abandon the slow selling A319, while Bombardier benefits from the growth in this expanded market. Even if it holds a smaller residual stake, Boeing could forge a similar alliance with either Embraer with its E-Jet E2 or Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and its MRJ. On 21 December, Boeing Embraer confirmed to be discussing a potential combination with a transaction subject to Brazilian government regulators, the company's boards and shareholders approvals. The weight of Airbus and Boeing could help E2 and C series sales, but the 100 to 150 seats market seems low, as the C series, renamed A220 and E-Jet E2, are more capable than their predecessors. They moved closer to the lower end of the narrow bodies. In 2018, the four Western airframers combined into two within 9 months, as Boeing acquired 80% of Embraer's airliners for $3.8 billion on July 5. Suppliers. The large aerospace suppliers are United Technologies with $28.2 billion of revenue, followed by GE Aviation with $24.7 billion, Safran with $22.5 billion, Rolls-Royce Holdings with $16.9 billion, Honeywell Aerospace with $15.2 billion, and Rockwell Collins, including B Aerospace with $8.1 billion. The electric aircraft development could generate large changes for the aerospace suppliers. On 26 November 2018, United Technologies announced the completion of its Rockwell Collins acquisition, renaming system supplier UTC Aerospace Systems as Collins Aerospace for $23 billion of sales in 2017 and 70,000 employees and $39.0 billion of sales in 2017, combined with engine manufacturer Pratt and Whitney. Supply chain. Before the 1980s and 1990s, aircraft and aero engine manufacturers were vertically integrated. Then Dufflos Aircraft outsourced large aerostructures, and the Bombardier Global Express pioneered the Tier 1 supply chain model inspired by automotive industry, with 10 to 12 risk-sharing limited partners funding around half of the development costs. The Embraer E-Jet followed in the late 1990s with fewer than 40 primary suppliers. Tier 1 suppliers were led by Honeywell, Safran, Goodrich Corporation, and Hamilton Sandstrand. In the 2000s, Rolls-Royce reduced its supplier count after bringing in automotive supply chain executives on the Airbus A380. Less than 100 major suppliers outsourced 60% of its value. Even 80% on the A350 XWB. Boeing embraced an aggressive Tier 1 model for the B787, but with its difficulties began to question why it was earning lower margin than its suppliers, while it seemed to take all the risk, ensuring its 2011 Partnering for Success initiatives. As Airbus initiated its own Scope Plus initiatives for the A320, Tier 1 consolidations also affects engine manufacturers. GE Aviation acquired Avio in 2013, and Rolls-Royce plc is taking control of industry D-turbo propulsors. An airline An airline is a company that provides air transport services for traveling passengers and freight. Airlines utilizes aircraft to supply these services and may form partnerships or alliances with other airlines for code share agreements. Generally, airline companies are recognized with an air operating certificate or license issued by a governmental aviation body. Airlines vary in size from small domestic airlines to full service international airlines with double decker airplanes. Airline services can be categorized as being intercontinental, domestic, regional, or international, and may be operated as scheduled services or charters. The largest airline currently is American Airlines Group. Among the diverse elements that conform the air transportation industry, airlines represent the most visible ones and the most interactive with the consumer, that is, the passenger. An airline provides air transport services for traveling passengers or freight. Airlines lease or own their aircraft with which to supply these services and may form partnerships or alliances with other airlines for mutual benefit. Example: One World, SkyTeam, and Star Alliance. Airlines vary from those with a single aircraft carrying mail or cargo through full service international airlines operating hundreds of aircraft. Airline services can be categorized as being intercontinental, intracontinental, domestic, regional, international, and may be operated as scheduled services or charters. The four oldest non-dirigible airlines that still exist are Netherlands KLM, Colombia's Avianca, Australia's Qantas, and Czech Republic's Czech Airlines, from those first years going on the elite passengers of the 50s and ultimately to the current mass use of air transport. The old airline companies have evolved significantly. Airline personnels. The various types of airline personnel include flight operation personnel, including flight safety personnel, flight crew responsible for the operation of the aircraft. Flight crew members include pilots, flight attendants, in-flight security personnel, pilots, captain and first officer. Some older aircraft also required a flight engineer and or a navigator. Flight attendants led by a pursuer or on larger aircraft. In-flight security personnel on some airlines, most notably EIAI. Ground crew responsible for operations at airports. Ground crew members include aerospace and avionics engineers responsible for certifying the aircraft for flight and management of aircraft maintenance. Aerospace engineers responsible for airframe, power plant, and electrical system maintenance. Avionics engineers responsible for avionics and instrument maintenance. Airframe and power plant technicians, electric system technicians, and responsible for maintenance of electrical systems. Philippine Airlines Airbus A340-300 taxiing to stand at T4. Flight dispatchers, baggage handlers, ramp agents, remote centralized weight and balancing, gate agents, ticket agents, passenger service agents, reservation agents, usually but not always at facilities outside the airport, crew schedulers. Airlines follow a corporate structure where each broad area of operation, such as maintenance, flight operation, including flight safety and passenger service, is supervised by a vice president. Larger airlines often appoint vice presidents to oversee each of the airlines hub as well. Airlines employ lawyers to deal with regulatory procedures and other administrative tasks. Military air forces. The military air forces are linked to the defense of each country. In that sense, they play a strategic role in security, heavily depending on the economical potential of the country and its geopolitical situation. Historically, it has been an encouraging sector for technology and innovation towards military supremacy. Due to World War II and Cold War, nowadays it is mostly based on cooperation and alliances. However, inherent threats in nations still make this sector a strategic sector whose demand in high technology will be maintained. An instance of this is the encouraging trend of the USA towards the development of unmanned air vehicles UAV in the last 20 years in order to maintain the supremacy in the Middle East, minimizing the risk of soldiers' life. Air Force. An Air Force, also known in some countries as an aerospace force or air army, is in the broadest sense the national military branch that primarily conducts aerial warfare. More specifically, it is the branch of a nation's armed services that is responsible for aerial warfare as distinct from an army, navy, or a marine corps. Typically, air forces are responsible for gaining control of the air, carrying out strategic and tactical bombing missions, and providing support to land and naval forces, often in the form of aerial reconnaissance and close air support. The term Air Force may also refer to a tactical air force or numbered air force, which is an operational formation either within a national air force or comprising several air components from allied nations. Air Force typically consists of combination of fighters, bombers, helicopters, transport planes, and other aircraft. Many air forces are responsible for operation of the military space, intercontinental ballistic missiles (ICBM), and communication equipment. Some air forces may command and control other air defense assets such as anti-aircraft artillery, surface-to-air missiles, or anti-ballistic missile warning networks. and defensive systems. Some nations, principally Russia, the former Soviet Union, and countries who modeled their militaries along Soviet lines, have or had an air defense force which is organizationally separate from their air force. Peacetime, non-wartime activities of air forces may include air policing and air sea rescue. Air forces are not just composed of pilots but also rely on a significant amount of support from other personnel to operate. Logistics, security, intelligence, special operations, cyberspace support, maintenance, weapon loaders, and many other specialties are required by all air forces. Infrastructures on Earth. Whether traveling near Earth or deep in our solar system, every spacecraft is supported by a sophisticated ground segment comprising computer systems, software, telecommunication networks, and other resources that enable engineers and scientists to send up commands and receive data from onboard instruments. In order to perform safe operations either for airliners, military aircraft, or space missions, a set of infrastructures and human resources is needed. The necessary infrastructures on Earth to assist flight operation and space missions are airports and air navigation services. On the one hand, referring to atmospheric flights, launch bases, and control and surveillance centers. On the other, referring to space missions. The airport is the localized infrastructure where flights depart and land. It is also a multimodal node where interaction between flight transportation and other transportation modes, rail and road, takes place. It consists of a number of conjoined buildings, flight field installations, and equipments that enable the safe landing, takeoff, and ground movements of aircraft, together with the provision of hangars for parking, services, and maintenance. The multimodal air transition of passengers, baggage, and cargo. The air navigation is the process of steering an aircraft in flight from an initial position to a final position following a determined route and fulfilling certain requirements of safety and efficiency. The navigation is performed by each aircraft independently using diverse external sources of information and proper onboard equipments. The fundamental goals are to avoid getting lost, to avoid collisions with other aircraft or obstacles, and to minimize the influence of adverse meteorological conditions. Air navigation demands juristic, organizational, operative, and technical framework to assist aircraft and air fulfilling safe operations. The different air navigation service providers, ANSP, ANA in Spain, FAA in USA, Eurocontrol in Europe, etc., provide these frameworks comprising three main components. Activities of research institutions. The activities of aerospace research institutions are designing, manufacturing, and launching 4 generations of space-sounding rockets, 8 sounding payloads, manufacturing and testing the cold gas propulsion system, identification of standards used in the designing, manufacturing, and testing of space equipments, designing and manufacturing the fixed flight simulator for Iran 140 airliner, codification of the National Comprehensive Document for Aerospace Development, designing and construction of the microgravity simulator, conceptual design of an orbiting spacecraft carrying the living organism, aerospace applications in environmental studies and environmental remote sensing, designing, construction, and testing the first generation of suborbital manned spacecraft, telemetry conceptual design for the altitude of 250 kilometers, designing, manufacturing, and testing the recovery system for a 500 kilogram payload, dynamic analysis of the astronaut's body for suborbital space flights, feasibility study of the attitude control system for sounding rockets, designing, manufacturing, and testing the moving mass control actuator.